Air pollution, largely from power generation, reduced life expectancy and was responsible for over 30,000 deaths in the United States alone between 1999 and 2015. Fortunately, the world has felt a shift in energy generation since then, with renewable energy systems accounting for 72% of all new power capacity globally in 2019. Solar and wind has contributed 90% of this added capacity. But even with the positive health and environmental benefits that have been achieved with this shift, is the renewable energy technology of today enough to truly bring society back to balance with the planet? I am your host, Mike Lake, and in today's preview, I will be speaking with Pablo Vidarte about how his company, Bioo, is developing perhaps the greenest energy system society has ever seen.
Innovation, resiliency, discovery. Join Mike Lake, President and CEO of Leading Cities, as we explore the technologies shaping the possibilities of our future with a preview of tomorrow.
Welcome, Pablo, and thank you so much for joining us. For our listeners, Pablo Vidarte is the founder and CEO of Bioo, a Barcelona-based startup that generates electricity from plants. Pablo, the future prospects of powering our communities with energy from nature is truly exciting, and using plants is revolutionary. But before we get into Bioo and the amazing technology you have created, I'd like to start off this interview by asking you, what is your biggest fear for society in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, hello, first of all, Michael. Really nice being here. First up, I think that if we're talking about 5 to 10 years, we should think about what is happening right now. First off, in terms of COVID, because we've seen that the world is kind of recovering, at least a little bit, in terms of climate change and things like that. But the problem right now is that what will happen right after? I mean, if we think that the COVID is doing a good change in terms of climate change, we have to think that it's also creating a very negative impact in terms of economics and every single thing related with that. So the problem is that if we have low resources in terms of how to expand our cities, how to expand our companies, and we focused on increasing benefits because we are really struggling with that instead of actually creating good impact. That is perhaps one of the greatest problems that we will have in the short term. So once we surpass that frontier, because in a lot of countries they are already seeing that problem that it's just going to happen. If we are able to trespass that problem, we will see that the things will turn like we were before. So just like a year or 2 years ago, the main issue right now is that we are simply too late, or that we see, or that we think that the renewable sources that we have right now are actually the solution. They are not really the solution. The thing is that they're basically preventing the world from getting worse. What we should fight for, and the huge problem that I see right now, is that we don't see that we really need technologies and new ways to innovate to make the world recover to what we actually had before as a planet.
So in other words, what we think of as solar and wind and these other renewable sources, it's really just a Band-Aid right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it's not healing.
Bear in mind that, for example, in Germany, they're even cutting down trees to place solar panels, which is basically a black panel where there was a tree before. And that's basically a very radical example, but it's a real one. So bear in mind that we are fighting the illness, not really by preventing it, but just from stopping the bleeding, and that's not really the way we should do it. I mean, that's the way we should do it in the short term. But the thing is that if we get lost in that short term view, well, we're lost.
So this problem, I mean, talking specifically about energy generation, I mean, clearly I don't see, and I'm sure you agree, that the world's need for energy is going to decrease. I mean, its efficiency can increase, certainly, but its ultimate need is not going to go away. So tell me, what is the real challenge right now in terms of energy production and the opportunity?
Well, it's always about risks and mitigations. When talking about, for example, nuclear power, we already know the risks, but there are other solutions, like, for example, nuclear power based in thorium, which is not really radioactive, and if it explodes, we won't have the problems that we had before. If we talk about fusion power, well, that's something that we're already working at, but I mean, as a society, not us. But those are things that give you an example of what we should focus on new technologies that are being implemented right now, like the ones that we do, to literally use nature not just as something to be placed on a park just because it's beautiful, but actually to get a profit out of it, to even make the most selfish companies not to want to cut the trees down, but actually take care of them just because they are obtaining a profit out of it.
So let's talk a little bit about Bioo and the amazing work that you're doing to achieve this. Tell us a little bit, first of all, of how you came to create Bioo.
Yeah, so actually, I was involved in another company. It was a hardware-based company. We were creating trackers and things related with telecommunications. And I suddenly woke up from the bed and had a really cool dream, by the way. And basically, I thought about the idea of what if we could actually treat the plant, the leaf of a plant as a solar panel. And the short answer is that it's really not possible, as I say it. But there was a way that I suddenly found out, and I say suddenly because I went into the computer for the whole day and the day after without even sleeping, and I was searching for ways to actually use that process that nature was already using, and I understood, and I found that there were organizations, even NASA or the MIT, who were creating biological batteries. They were using them to basically obtain energy out of wastewater plants. And that is very impressive because they were basically using the organic matter there and microorganisms eating that organic matter to create electrons and then create an electric current. But after all, I said, well, what if we do this in a static environment? And after all, I went with a team. We began creating different prototypes and concepts. And after a year of creating a prototype after a prototype, we began with Bioo, basically, because we realized that it was not only possible, but something that was really the future itself. And that's how Bioo came to life. I mean, actually, we've been like 5 years with the whole company.
And so tell me, like, give our audience a sense of how much energy can be generated from a plant, and does the size of the plant, the type of plant, determine how much energy is used?
Yeah, so we are not just obtaining energy out of plants. If we say that we are obtaining energy out of nature itself, is because sometimes we just do it out of a soil field, for example. We don't even need plants in a lot of cases, which is very convenient, because one of the applications, for example, is using like small biological batteries that you basically plug into the soil, and you're able to obtain like 20 watts hour per day in discharges of 100 milliseconds. And that's very interesting because it's like 3,000 times what you actually require for a sensor. And it's not a lot of energy. I mean, right now we are not competing against solar panels, for example, but it's something that we will do in the next 5 to 10 years. And our goal is to go from agriculture to cities. And actually, we're not just developing this technology, we're developing other technologies in order to make this more accessible from now, so that I mean, in fact, we're actually creating installations right now in cities. So anyway, it's a whole bunch of things, the ones that I could be speaking about right now. But in general terms, we are producing energy. It's useful, but it's going to be even more useful in the coming years.
And so you mentioned the work at MIT and NASA of using microorganisms to generate those electrons. Is that a similar process? Is that what that process is like with Bioo?
Yeah, exactly. But the fundamental thing here, apart from using a different concept of biological battery, the fundamental concept is that we are not using artificially made microorganisms. We are just using the microorganisms that are naturally found in the soil. The only thing we do is like a hotel for them. So we plug that hotel in the ground, and we attract only the ones who are more convenient for our battery, the ones who basically create more electrons, or the ones who conduct them. And basically, those microorganisms are already living in that soil. What we do is just to increase their concentration in our battery. And that's a very cool concept, because it's basically creating a microburst without actually affecting or negatively affecting the external environment.
It's amazing. And so tell me a little bit more about the actual products that you either have now or are in development.
Yeah, so basically we have two main lines. One is using plants as biological switches to, well, for example, when you touch a plant and being able to switch on lights or sound or whatever. And that is something that we are using for domotics, for example. And well, it's called Bioo installations because we are basically creating installations indoor, outdoors, for cities, for companies. And that is something that is already in the market. Then we have an educational line, which is very interesting, because even a parent can buy that so that their kids can learn how to create a biological battery, and that's very easy, very straightforward. You just go to our webpage and ask for that. And those are the lines who are commercially available right now. We are developing, on the other hand, the two lines which are not already in the market, related with the agricultural sector, with providing batteries, biological batteries for sensors in agriculture, and the other line, which is focused on creating panels, which are basically placed under the grass terrain in any kind of surface, like a park or a garden. And the thing is that we will launch that in 2 years' time, more or less, and the goal is to basically turn on light points in those parks and gardens, irrigation systems, and in the future even power homes.
That's amazing. So in a place like, say, New York City, with, of course, most famous Central Park,
Exactly.
you could imagine all of the power necessary to light and irrigate or whatnot. Central Park could be produced by the soil and the nature within Central Park. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously we won't be able to power the whole city, but indeed the park and even some surrounding parts of or buildings could be powered by the whole park. I mean, it's a very big park. We all know that. And anyway, yeah, our goal is to make that. But bear in mind that even though I've been criticizing a little bit the renewable energies that we have right now, it wasn't really a critic. The only critic there was that we actually need to think even a little bit more. But we see ourselves not as the solution, but just as a part of that energy mix that we're seeing right now, and that is going to get bigger in the next years.
And one quick question about the deployment. So do you see everything from cities like New York to install such panels, or use the education kits within the school system? You know, do you see cities as the main clients, or do you see also, you mentioned, parents can be purchasing these kits to teach their children at home, but can the panels be purchased at some point in the future to power a home, an individual's home?
Exactly. I mean, that's the goal in 10 years time. So right now, we are selling this to cities, we're selling this to companies, and we're selling this even to parents, as you said, to or even schools well, with the bioed kits, so they can build biological batteries themselves and even turn on an LED light. But it's an educational concept. It's a very interesting one, and it's one that is working very well in the countries in which we're selling this, because it's really changing the way we think. I mean, imagine having your kid going to school, learning that, coming home and saying, hey, Father, I know how to create energy out of nature itself. I can even teach you. So in that way, after a year or two, when we launch the Bioo panel, they won't see that as something weird, but rather as something necessary. And that's the way we're facing the market approach, basically, and the way we want the world to be transformed with these concepts.
That's brilliant. So last question for you. Bring us 5-10 years into the future, and what is that user experience like?
Well, that's a very cool question, because we see the cities of the future, not only your home, as no longer consisting on concrete walls around you, which is like a 20th century concept. We want to transform that concept and make you feel surrounded by nature, as we should be, but also with technology, because we like to be comfortable in our homes as well. So imagine, for example, going inside a hotel room or even your home, being able to touch a green wall and turning on the lights of your own room. Imagine, for example, going into the streets of your city and seeing that the plants or the natural spaces that you're having there are not only used as a decorative thing, but something that it's really useful, because it's powering what you see at night. And that it's the user experience that we're going to see. I mean, in fact, when we talk, for example, about the applications in agriculture, it's very straightforward, because when I speak about a battery that you literally plug in the soil, it's just like that. I mean, the only thing it requires, it's water. And any kind of agricultural field, well, mostly any kind, they already have irrigation, so it's not really going to be a problem. So in general terms, it's going to be something as easy as buying a smartphone right now, because it has to be like that. It has to be simple. And a lot of investors have told us that the beauty of what we do is basically the beauty of simplicity.
And I'll tell you, to hear you earlier say you don't even need the plants, all you need is soil, is hope for someone who tends to kill every plant he's ever touched. That even my home could be powered and controlled by switches and an energy source found in soil and plants. Well, listen, this is truly, as I said earlier, truly innovative, revolutionary. Thank you for walking us through what you're already doing, the success you've already had, but also painting this picture for what the future can be for all of us. Now, for all of our listeners and viewers who are interested, how can they, learn more or get in contact with you?
Well, if you're able to go into the internet and look for Bioo with 2 O's, BIOO, well, it will be very straightforward. Otherwise, just go into biotech with 2 O's as well.com, and you'll be able to see everything we do. Feel free to contact us. You'll have everything right there. And anyway, of course, you're absolutely invited to follow us in our social networks.
Terrific. Pablo Vidarte, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for the incredible impact you're having on the world and how we think about producing and using energy in the future.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Preview of Tomorrow. In addition to thanking our guest, I want to thank Peter Roy and Demetria Bridges for making this podcast possible. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and encourage others to also join us each week in previewing the possibilities of tomorrow.
Preview of Tomorrow is brought to you by Leading Cities, a global nonprofit driving resilience and sustainability for all by unleashing the potential of the world's cities. Join them at leadingcities.org.